Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am Hamza Hashmi. This is the seventh episode of our webinar. We have titled it TerraBiz E-Talks, and we are very pleased and privileged to have with us today Mr. Bharat Avalani, who is joining us from Malaysia. He's a dear friend, and you'll be seeing him in a while on your screens. Uh, Profound welcome, Bharat. I'm so thankful to you for joining us. Uh, Bharat is a dear friend, and he is a he is a remarkable leader. He has been very active in the advertising and marketing fraternity in leadership roles. He commands a great experience, but more about him later. Today's topic, as you all know, is about storytelling for business leaders, and the emphasis is that storytelling for business leaders in a post-pandemic world. The post-pandemic world, where the humanity has, experienced certain lessons. So, Bharat research and his experiences and dealings with, global experience will be very beneficial for all of us. So, Bharat, I'm pleased to inform you that today we are joined by over 600 people. Rarely do we see such a pull at such a short notice because we hardly promoted the program for a couple of days, and I am quite sure that it will be watched multiple times the by the people once it is available as a on-demand program on our website. So TerraBiz, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for those who have joined us live, and all of you will be shared a link of the recording, which you can watch for the next 30 days on our platform, and those who will be joining later may also fill in the form and join. So. So TerraBiz has been in the business of organizing executive education programs and conferences for the last 12 years, both in Pakistan and abroad. We have a sister concern in Dubai, a knowledge village. It's called Symphotics International. They have also promoted this program, and many people have joined, have registered from Dubai and from other regional Gulf countries. Um, you can see the different logos on the screen, the associations who have partnered with us. We're profoundly thankful to all of them, and we look forward to continue our collaboration with these reputable organizations that you see on the screen. Um, I'll be thanking each one of them toward the end of the program. So the format goes like that. I will be shortly handing it over to Mr. Bharat Avalani, who will give a fantastic keynote to you. Those who have at the time of registration, and there are quite a few, about 50 or 60 of people at the time of registration, have also sent their questions. So we'll be displaying all those questions on the screen, and you can still ask questions because there's a Slido screen on the Slido app on the screen, which is an interactive app, and you can post live questions and comment. There's a poll out there which I will strongly recommend you all to fill it out. Bharat's style is very interactive. Normally, when he does workshops and talks, he engages with the audience a lot. He will be doing it in a way which will be more suitable for the virtual platform. But I'm sure that this talk will be very interesting, and you will be glued to the talk till the end. And towards the for about 60 minutes, Bharat Ablani will give his presentation, and then for next 30 minutes, I'll be asking him some questions that we have shortlisted for today. And even if some questions we receive while the talk is in progress through the Slido app, those some of those will also be incorporated. All questions, for the interest of time, may not be taken. Maybe we can do it some other time, or but today we will only be picking up those questions who are more relevant. Particularly questions we had received till yesterday had all been shared with Mr. Bharat Avalani. So he might have addressed those or might have kept them in view while preparing for his talk today. So I would just like to mention here that Bharat Avalani, because he's a, or won't spend much time on his profile because it has been shared with all of you. You can see it on the website also. He's a Unilever marketing veteran, and he is the vice president of International Advertising Association Malaysia chapter. He is the member of the executive committee of the association of the Asian Federation of Advertising Association, and he has worked at senior positions in the Unilever over the region. More importantly, today the talk that he will be conducting is absolutely important for us to know that he is the global partner of Anecdote, which is recognized as the world leader in the use of storytelling in business. So this is an important topic. Bharat, we have an audience which has come from all the industry spectrum, all the sectors, all the industry verticals, and we have people from students and internees to bank presidents and CEOs. So there's a very diverse group that is available today, both established leaders and the emerging ones. So I now hand it over to you and would like you to begin. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Hamza. Hello, everybody. So even though there are about 600 of us, मुझे थोड़ा अकेलापन महसूस होता है. I feel quite lonely because I'm all alone by myself, like probably most of you. That's how the pandemic world is. So what I thought was I could bring myself to you in a sort of a virtual world. So firstly, I think the kurta which I'm wearing is actually from Khadis in Islamabad. And I also want to remind myself that I'm actually speaking from home, like most of you. And the home is not an office. So this home actually belongs to my wife. It belongs to my son. I also need to play a role of a father and a husband. So if there'll be a little bit of interruption, it's normal. It's natural because we are all from home. So this is my home. And some of you who have been to Kuala Lumpur, I live in Petaling Jaya. Now, as Hamza said, I'm actually a global partner of Anecdote International, which is the world's leader in the use of business in storytelling. And it's got a very clear purpose, which is to help restore humanity to the workplace. Now, for you to sort of enjoy this experience, I'd like you to bear sort of two things in mind. Number one is, I'd like you to take some notes because when I speak, all of that may not be on my PowerPoint. So I think it's good to have a paper and a pen handy so that you don't miss out on some of those things that I tell you. So that's number one. Number two, I'm going to be showing a lot of videos. So it's important that you have good connectivity because unlike some other speakers where you don't use much videos, then the audio thing is fine. But because I'm going to be showing a few videos, so make sure that your connectivity is correct. I'm not sure whether it's going to be Wi-Fi or data, but whatever works best for you, please do it. So, so being a Malaysian, for me, coming to Pakistan is very easy because both our countries enjoy a very cordial relationship. And I've been to Pakistan so many times that I've actually lost count. And on a good day, I actually get a multiple entry visa for 1 year. But, you know, every time I visit Pakistan, and my first visit was in 1996. And in those days, you know, people would say, you know, is it safe to go to Pakistan? Of course, now not many people ask that question, but some people who have never been to Pakistan still ask that question because for you to get to know to Pakistan, you can't read about Pakistan. You need to experience it. Aapko महसूस करना चाहिए. But you know what I tell them? I actually share with them my first visit to Pakistan. And my first visit to Pakistan was in September 1996. No, sorry. September 1976. Oh, wait, let me get that thing right. Sorry, yeah, September 1996. So September 1996 was my first visit to Pakistan, and I come to attend a conference organized by a beautiful lady called Nahid Siddiqui, who used to run the consumer research division there. And we had a great time. And on the last day, while I was leaving, she actually told me, Bharat, I'm so happy you came here. Allah Hafiz. And then she told me something which nobody has ever told me. And she actually blessed me. And she said, Bharat, Khuda Hafiz, Jiye Kamane Wale. Jiye Kamane Wale means if you are the breadwinner of the family, may you be the last to go. And I think that's the dua which Nahid gave me. And I think I have that. And that dua has actually kept me safe. And I have a photograph of that moment. So let me share with you that photograph. Just give me a minute. Be a bit virtual patient, because it takes a bit of a while for me to get in and get out the screen. So I think one thing we need to learn is also to be virtually patient. And I hope my screen comes out all right. So, Nahid Siddiqui is the lady in the sari. And a few other people here. You see Shazia Said, Fatima, Faria Subhani there. Then there is Qasim Rabani, who's standing right next to me. And I'm the one wearing that blazer. So this is a very precious photograph for me. But more important is the dua which I got from Nahid. The second thing which I shared with them was sometime in 2015, I was invited by my friend Masood Syed to come and speak at the Brand Pakistan conference in Islamabad. And I quickly accepted the invitation because I had another agenda in mind. And all of you know that incident that happened on the 16th of December 2014 at the Army Public School in Peshawar, where about 132 children lost their lives. And totally about 146 lives were lost. And like everybody in the world, it broke my heart. It brought tears to my eyes. And I told myself that at the earliest opportunity, I would like to go to Islamabad, to Peshawar, at the Army Public School, and to pay my respects. So 2 days before the conference was to start, I actually came to Islamabad, and my friend Sohail Kisat, Fatima Kisat, actually drove me down to Peshawar. And we actually went to the Army public school, and I also got a chance to meet two of the boys who actually survived the massacre. It was a very touchy moment, but I got a lot of strength from the resilience of the boys. On our way back from Peshawar to Islamabad, we actually stopped by at a petrol station. And while we were at the petrol station, we saw an old man who wanted to sell miswa to us. And looking at the bundle of miswa that he had in his hand, we thought he probably had not had a good day because the bundle was full. And out of respect, instead of giving him some money, we actually bought some miswa from him and gave him 100 rupees. And I think he gave us a dua. He blessed us. And then we got on the way to Islamabad. And 10 minutes on the highway, there was a hailstorm like I'd never sort of experienced before. It was literally sort of rocks falling on the vehicle. And I actually captured that moment. And next day, when we read the newspaper, we heard news that actually some people died on that highway because of the heavy hailstorm. And again, I told myself that we are probably saved by the duas. So to me, I think goodwill of people and duas are the ones that actually keep you safe wherever you are. And that's how I feel. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is, the way I responded to people. Had I responded by saying that, no, no, Pakistan is safe, don't worry about it and all that, they would have said, no, 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 but we are reading it in CNN, we are reading it in BBC. How can you say that? But instead of sort of arguing with them, I told them my experience. I actually told them two stories. And stories are concrete. Stories are real. And you cannot argue with stories. And I made the point that Pakistan is safe for me because I've experienced safety. And that's the power of a storytelling. Storytelling are much, much more powerful. Of course, facts are important, but when it's complemented by stories, you actually land your point beautifully. So stories are concrete. And that's why I actually shared with you that I've actually experienced the power of storytelling in most of my conversations. Now, coming back to our topic today, storytelling for a post-pandemic world. I think storytelling is always important, be it pre-pandemic or be it post-pandemic. But I think in post-pandemic, it is becoming increasingly important. And the reason being, we are all sort of drowning in data, we are drowning in information. With the virtual world we live in, I think there's an overdose of communication, so much so that we don't only have a difficulty understanding, but we also have difficulty remembering. So as leaders whom we need to communicate often, I think storytelling actually helps you to make your messages stick, to make your messages memorable, and more important, to break out from the clutter. And, as leaders, you need to be very competent in your work. Obviously, we need to be good in work. But in order for you to be more successful, I think you need to be more engaging, you need to be more influencing, and you need to be more inspiring. And that's where storytelling skills actually help you to succeed, because it helps you to communicate with impact. And I actually read some of those comments and thoughts and questions and expectations that you all sent me, which I'm going to flash in a short while. But one thing was quite interesting. I think there was this beautiful question from Hina Mariam, and she said, I want to know the art of storytelling. And Hina, I actually want to tell you that storytelling is business, is not an art. Storytelling in business is a skill, it's a science that can be learned. So if you look at storytelling, there are two spectrums. There's a big storytelling. So big storytelling is the world of movies, is the world of Hollywood, is the world of advertising, is the world of Steven Spielberg. And that definitely is an art. It's a talented people that need to do it. And of course, it's a world of fiction. But the small s, that's what I'm going to talk about. It's about storytelling about people. You're talking about our anecdotes, our experiences, and sharing life stories. And there's a way of doing it. And so what I'm going to do, Hina and the rest, is that I'm going to share with you some of those skills that with practice you can get better. So remember that, okay? All of us can be storytellers, and it's a skill that can easily be learned with practice. Now, I actually went through your expectations, and I thank you for sharing all your expectations. But I was telling myself that if I were to sort of meet up with all your expectations, it will probably take me a few days. So I picked up a few expectations or questions. I'm not going to read them out. I think you can just have a quick look at it. But in my presentation with you today, I'll be sharing most of those things that I've picked up. Yeah. So, and in case I miss out some of this, Hamza, please remind me, and I'll sort of pick them up in case I miss. But I've done my presentation in such a way that I've tried to address most of your questions. So let me start by asking you a very simple question. And my question to you is, who would say they are a storyteller? So I don't know whatever devices you are on, can you just say yes or no? Or you can put it on the Slido poll. So if you're a storyteller, you just say yes. And if you're not a storyteller, you say no. So I'll probably wait for a few seconds for you to make your comments. So since there are about 600 of us, I'll not wait too long. But let me tell you that, whenever I ask these questions, about three-fourths of the people would say they are not a storyteller. And a few people, about 25%, will raise their hand and will say, look, I'm a storyteller. Uh, so I like to, and let me stop this for a while. So let me share with you an interesting finding. So there's this British anthropologist called Robin Dunbar, and Robin Dunbar is famous for something called the Dunbar number, which I'm going to talk about. But it's interesting to know Robin Dunbar says that at any point in time you can have meaningful relationship with 150 people. And I've tried it, and I think my list came to about 160. So if you want to list down those people that you have relationships with, it will be on average about 150. So Dunbar is famous for the something called a Dunbar number, that at any point in time you can have a meaningful relationship with about meaningful or stable relationships with about 150 people. But Robin Dunbar did another experiment. What happened was he had a group of PhD students working for him. And what he told the PhD students was, he said, look, why don't you just go and hang around at places where people are interacting socially. So it could be at canteen, it could be in a restaurant, could be a coffee shop, also could be a chai place, and listen to what people are saying. And after that, please codify what you heard. People were actually talking about uh, what they did to somebody. Somebody did something to somebody. And what do you call that? You can put it in the chat box. What happens when uh, when you're talking about someone and that someone is not in the conversation? Correct. It's called gossip. So gossip can be good or bad. Obviously, when you speak something good about somebody, it is called good gossip. When you speak something bad about somebody, it's called bad gossip. But here, a beautiful definition of a gossip. And he said gossip is about, whenever you're talking about someone and that someone is not in the conversation, is gossip. And gossiping is a kind of storytelling. So if some of you said, Faizan said that I'm not a storyteller, then I'll ask Faizan, do you gossip? And if there's anybody here who doesn't gossip, then you're not a storyteller. But at some point in time, if you gossip, then you are a storyteller. Correct? Now, I think next what I'm going to do is, so remember that we are all storytellers. So my role to you is, that innate skills that you have on storytelling, how can you bring it to work? How can you bring it to the workplace? Now, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you a video. The original video is quite long, but I've shortened it to about 90 seconds. It's a black and white video, so there's no sound. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with your device. So don't go around playing with your device and trying to correct the sound. But I like you to watch that video, and after that video, I like you to, I told you, right, to have a paper and a pen or pencil. Please write down what's happening for you in the video. And if some of you can make comments, would be good. Then at least I can save the comments in the live conversation. So let me share the video with you. Right. So take about half a minute. And what was happening? What did you see when you are looking at the video? What's happening in the video? Please feel free to use the live comment chat as well. So in 1944, there were two American psychologists, and they were called, it's called the Hyder and Simmel study. And what Fritz Hyder and Marian Simmel did was they actually made this black and white video of about 3 minutes, and they actually showed it to 35 people. So of that 35 people, 33 people saw it as a story of either office politics, bullying, some domestic fight, somebody said incest, and also a love affair gone wrong. So it was all about relationships. One person saw it as birds and bees. They saw about a story, an animal. And of that 35, one person saw it as mere geometrical shapes. And I probably think that person was probably an accountant or an engineer who saw things very logically. But actually, that's what it was meant to be. It was just geometrical shapes. But that particular study actually proves a point. So even today, when I do the same experiment, the answers are not very different. So even if I have not seen what you have written, I'm sure some of you would have written bullying, office politics, domestic violence, love affair, and fight and relationships problems and all that. So the answers are quite similar. But it proves one thing. And the thing is, as human beings, we always want to find meaning in everything that we see and we hear. So many a times when you speak in abstract terms, or if you don't complete what you are saying, the person who's listening will actually complete the story. Now, so I can take an example. So imagine you're working for a big company, and hundreds of people working in that office, and you are sitting probably on the 24th floor, and the chairman, and you are in the public affairs department. Okay, the chairman never comes to your floor. So on this particular day, the chairman actually comes to the floor, and everybody starts thinking, hey, why is the chairman here? Why is the chairman here? Okay, don't you know there's an AGM coming up? So probably the chairman is here to get some details. So then people continue with the work. So they have a story. Then somebody says, hey, look, our factory in the north caught fire. So probably the chairman is here to find out what kind of details. Then you replace that story with another story. And this is basically what happens to us as human beings. So it's very important that as leaders, we actually speak with clarity. Otherwise, you know what, in the head, people will sort of make up their own stories. Now, storytelling is a choice, or rather, the way you communicate, you have a choice in the terms, in the way that you want to communicate. And I'm going to demonstrate this to you by sharing with you a small video clip. And the video clip is from a series called West Wing. And the particular episode that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about the particular episode that's going to be highlighted in the video is called Galileo 5. Now, Galileo 5 is a moment when the spacecraft actually lands on planet Mars. So it's a very important moment in the history of space. And the president of the United States is about to go live and to speak to 60,000 American children. And the video is a bit about the rehearsal just before they go live. But I like you to sort of focus on two characters, and I'll show you who the two characters are. So I'm going to come back. So the two characters are Scott and Sam Seaborn. So Scott actually works for NASA. And just remember, Scott does not wear glasses. He's wearing a jacket, and he's a NASA spokesperson. Sam Seaborn works as a writer for the American president, right? He's a script writer to the American president. And Sam Seaborn is the gentleman who's wearing glasses. So if you look at the video, initially there's a bit of a setup, there's a bit of a conversation going around. So don't worry too much about that. So I think once the president starts interacting with Scott and Sam Seaborn, and I think that's the time that I'd like you to sort of focus. And then later we'll talk about it. And I hope the video works. If it does not work, Hamza, please send me a SMS or call my phone. So enjoy the video.
Who wrote this intro?
I did.
You're from NASA Public Affairs?
Yeah.
You mind if I give it a polish?
Is there a problem?
No, it's great. You mind if I change it?
I'd prefer if you didn't.
Just the same.
Public Affairs has cleared the text. If it's going to be changed, I'd prefer if the president changed it.
See, that's kind of what he pays me to do. So,
Look, I don't want to step on your toes. You don't want to step on mine. We're both writers.
yes, I suppose if we broaden the definition to those who can spell.
Excuse me?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President. Sir, this is the crew from NASA Public Affairs.
How you doing?
Sir, we're going to run you through the drill for tomorrow morning. First of all, you'll be flanked on either side by the Flight Operations Manager, David Narakawa, and NASA Chief Administrator, Dr. Peter Jobson. On either side of them will be Dr. Samuel Thurman of the Meteorite Analysis Team from the Johnson Space Center and Dr. Joyce Gray Sutton, Planetary Geologist from Cal State Northridge. On these monitors, you'll be seeing the images beamed back from the surface, and on this computer screen, you'll be able to read the questions being sent in by the kids. I strongly urge you,
Yes.
I strongly urge
I
you,
know.
I strongly urge you, Mr. President, to act as moderator and pass the questions off to one of the experts on the panel rather than answer it yourself.
Yes.
Would you like to see some of the questions?
We have questions in advance.
Some of them, would you put them up?
Sure. Katie, sixth grader, Green Oaks, Junior High School, Austin, Texas, asks, how old is the planet Mars? That's a great question, Katie. The planet Mars is 4.6 billion years old.
What did I just say?
I knew that.
Nobody likes a know-it-all.
Yes, God forbid that while talking to 60,000 public school students, the president should appear smart.
That's fine, just don't show off.
I don't show off. Stevie, fourth grader, PS31, Manhattan, asks, what is the temperature on Mars? Well, Stevie, if one of our expert panelists were here, they would tell you the average temperature ranges from 15 degrees to minus 140.
That happens to be wrong. It ranges from 60 to minus 225.
I converted it to Celsius in my head.
Thank you.
Can I see the intro?
It's up on the prompter.
Good morning. I'm speaking to you live from the West Wing of the White House. Today, we have a very unique opportunity to take part live in an extremely historic event with, whoa, boy.
How you doing, Mr. President?
Who wrote this intro?
I did, sir. I'm Scott Tate from NASA Public Affairs.
Scott. Unique means one of a kind. Something can't be very unique, nor can it be extremely historic.
While we're at it, do we have to use the word live twice in the first two sentences like we just cracked the technology?
Look,
We're also broadcasting in living color, right?
Sam?
Yeah.
He's going to make some changes.
You can clear him with me?
I doubt it.
Write this. Good morning. 11 months ago, a 1,200-pound spacecraft blasted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida. 18 hours ago, is it 18 hours ago? We're on the air at noon Eastern.
Yeah.
18 hours ago, it landed on the planet Mars. You, me, and 60,000 of your fellow students across the country, along with astroscientists and engineers from the Jet Propulsion Lab in Southern California, NASA Houston, and right here at the White House, we're going to be the first to see what it sees and to chronicle the extraordinary voyage of an unmanned ship called Galileo 5.
He said it right.
Right, so I'm going to pause here again for a few seconds. And I'm going to ask you a simple question. What was your reaction when Scott was speaking? And what was your reaction when Sam was speaking? So write down, when Scott was speaking, what was your reaction? What could you remember? And when Sam was speaking, what was your reaction and what could you remember? So we do this exercise all over the world whenever we do, and the answers are quite consistent. And we pick up those answers, we put it on a word cloud. And in a word cloud, the answers that are bold are the answers that sort of normally comes out. So if you look at Scott, when Scott spoke, you'll actually find him to be very boring. You find him to be very cold, formal, blah, 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 very impersonal, very unengaging, very technical. And if I have to ask you, you probably remember very little because he was speaking like, those geometrical shapes, speaking in a lot of abstract terms. So you got to sort of figure out what was he trying to make. On the other hand, when sort of Sam Seaborn was speaking, it was very emotive, very imagery. So you could actually visualize when Sam Seaborn was speaking, you could see and you could feel. So if you look at, I think, please write this down. A story describes what happened. A good story makes you see what happened. And a great story makes you feel what happened. I repeat, a story describes what happened. A good story makes you see what happened. And a great story makes you feel what happened. And that's actually what Sam did. While he was speaking, you could actually visualize it. And you could also feel the sort of sense of pride. And I called Sam, I think Sam spoke something called, which I would like to say is the language of leadership. When a leader speaks, you are, you feel very engaged, you feel very involved, and thoda wo apnapan mehsoos hota hai. But Scott actually spoke, I would say, probably a language of expertise, or like, I know everything, you listen to me. And he takes advantage of his position. So, and you know what happened, right? When Scott was speaking, there was a lot of resistance from the president. He said, look, who wrote that intro? And when Sam spoke, there was a lot of engagement. And he said, look, you got it right. So ask yourself, when you speak, are you speaking like Scott or you are speaking like Sam? And with a little bit of practice, you can actually become like Sam. Now, if we were to sort of analyze it, at the abstract level, you can make a lot of statements, you can make a lot of assertions, you can make a lot of opinions, or sometimes you can generalize, all Chinese are like this, all Malaysians are like that, and all so-and-so is like that. But they're all people. But I think the best leaders, what they do is that they actually share stories. They actually share moments that you can see and feel. So when you speak like Scott, I think the impact is very little. But when you speak like Sam Seaborn, the impact is very high. But in terms of frequency, most people like to speak like Scott. And very few people speak like Sam. And again, I'm telling you that with practice, you can easily become Sam Seaborn. So, somebody again asked about, so that's basically a bit of a background with this thing, storytelling pattern. But before I do that, let me tell you a definition of stories in business. So let me quickly go back to the chart, which I wanted to show you. Yeah, so this is it. So I hope it's coming on your screen because I went in a bit quickly. Good. So stories are facts wrapped in context and delivered with emotion. So in business, facts are important. Data is important. KPIs are important. So I'm not saying that we should not use facts. I think facts should be a part of what you say, but it should be complementary with the story. So stories are facts wrapped in context and delivered with emotion. That's exactly what Sam Seaborn did. He had all the facts, which was, about, what did he say, 11 months ago, 1,200 pounds, landed 18 hours ago and all that. So he had all the facts, but then he's sort of also put some context and emotion. You, me, and I, he spoke about people, he spoke about Cape Carnival. So that's how Sam actually demonstrated the use of stories in business. So stories are facts wrapped in context and delivered with business. Now, there are a lot of ways in which one can use stories in business, and there are a lot of patterns. So the interest of time, I'm actually going to demonstrate to you either one or two patterns. Let's see. And there was a very interesting question which I thought was nice. And that question was from, let me try to remember. who asked me that question. Yeah, that question was from Muhammad Yusuf, and Muhammad asked that, how can you use stories to make a connection? So here's the thing, Muhammad. So let me sort of go back to that chart. Okay, I hope the chart has come. So even though we are in business, we must remember that we are people first. So naturally, before even we start doing business with each other, we are actually quite interested in knowing a bit about each other. And people generally like to do business with people that they like. And there is a very nice saying, and the saying says that we like people who are like us. So what happens, in order for you to connect with people, there are two parts that actually help you to connect to people. That is, tell your listeners a story about something that makes you tick. So if you look at me, I think I actually, it's storytelling sort of what makes me tick, and show them you're a little bit like them. And the minute people see a little bit of themselves in you, they actually connect better. And always remember that people buy people first. Only then they buy your product, they buy your services. So many a times, you realize that you have done a very good proposal, sab kuch theek hai, lekin, that person whom want to do business with is probably not signing the document. And the person is probably thinking, what kind of a person this is that I'm going to be doing business with? Do I know him really well? And most of us forget how important connection is, particularly when we meet people for the very first time. And that's where the connection story pattern is extremely useful. And I think in order for me to demonstrate that, I'm going to actually show you a video where Indra Nui actually speaks. And some of you may have seen this video before because it has gone viral. But at that point in time, Indra Nui was the chairperson of PepsiCo International. So she was the first lady chairwoman or chairperson of PepsiCo. And there's a beautiful interview where she actually tells the listeners about what makes her tick, and also shows that she's like all mothers. I hope you'll enjoy the video.
So, Indra, you run a company with 300,000 employees, almost $70 billion in revenues. You come home one day as president of the company, just appointed, and your mom's not that impressed. Will you tell that story?
This was about 14 years ago, and I was working in the office. I worked very late, and we were in the middle of the Quaker Oats integration or the acquisition. And I got a call at about 9:30 in the night from the existing chairman and CEO at that time, and said to me that, Indra, we're going to announce you as president and put you on the board of directors of PepsiCo. I mean, I was overwhelmed because, look at my background, where I came from. To be president of an iconic American company and to be on the board of directors, I mean, I thought it was just something special had happened to me. So rather than stay and work till midnight, which I really would have done because I had so much work to do, I decided to go home and share the good news with my family. So I got home at about 10, parked the car, got into the garage, and my mother was waiting at the top of the stairs. And I said to her, Mom, I got great news for you. And she said, well, then let the news wait. Can you go out and get some milk? I said to Mom, look, I looked in the garage. Looks like my husband is home. What time did he get home? She said 8 o'clock. I said, why didn't you ask him to buy the milk? Because he's tired. Okay, he's tired. He's tired. We have a couple of help at home. Why don't you ask them to get the milk? She said, because I forgot. I said, okay, fine. She said, just go get the milk. We need it for the morning. So I, like a dutiful daughter, I went out and got the milk and came back. I sort of banged it on the counter and I said, I had great news for you. I've just been told that I'm going to be president on the board of directors. And all that you want me to do is to go out and get the milk. What kind of a mom are you? And she said to me, let me explain something to you. You might be president of PepsiCo, you might be on the board of directors, but when you enter this house, you're the wife, you're the daughter, you're the daughter-in-law, you're the mother, you're all of that. Nobody else can take that place. So leave that damn crown in the garage and don't bring it into the house. Now, I have to tell you, David, I've never seen that crown. I've never seen it. Between my husband and my kids, they've hidden it. So I haven't seen it ever.
So I'm sure most of you can relate to it, particularly the ladies. Uh, we may be leaders outside home, but when we are at home, we need to wear multiple roles. We are the mother, we are the daughter-in-law, we are the wife, and you are a daughter as well. And that's actually what Indra Nuyar did. She revealed, like, I'm like all of you. At the same time, I also run a fantastic professional life outside. And more importantly, if I were to ask you, what do you infer about her character? And I'm sure you'll infer some beautiful things about the character of Indra Nui, to see that how she fulfills her responsibilities at home and at work. Now you ask yourself, as leaders, are you comfortable speaking like that? And let me again remind you, people don't really care how competent you are or how good you are in your work. That is assumed, and I think that's why you are a leader. But you know what people are interested in the first time? They want to know whether you are caring or not. How caring are you? And once they know that you are a caring person, and only then they start caring about what you know. So I'll actually encourage you. I think it's okay to reveal a bit about yourself in a way that you are sort of comfortable with. And trust me, that will actually help you to build rapport and will help you to build a good connection with your people. And fortunately, in this virtual world, I think one thing good has happened is that a lot of barriers are broken. And through a virtual world, we have been able to see each other's homes, and we've been able to speak at much more on a one-to-one basis, because when you do a Zoom session, it looks like all of us sort of got a front row seats. And so leaders need to speak up and leaders need to show up. So do spend some time connecting and then talk about business as well, because it actually helps you to do business better. So, when we have more time, I'll actually can help each one of you to come up with your connection stories. Now, there was another interesting question that sort of came out, and that question was, can you tell us what is the ingredient of a story? So all this while I've been telling you like what's a story and what's not a story. And I like to sort of tell you that what are the storytelling elements. And when I tell you the storytelling elements, then you can start sort of filling up your story bank. I know all of you got your money banks, but as leaders, you must also have a story bank. So in order to have a story bank, you need to be a story spotter. So let me share with you some elements that goes into what makes a story. All right, so how do you become a story spotter? So the first thing in spotting stories is a story must have a time marker and a place marker. So you remember I spoke about my first visit to Pakistan, 1996, the Haider Simal video. I said 1944 in the United States. So there was a time and a place. So that does not guarantee a story, but chances are there's a story coming, because you can start sort of visualizing it. So that is point number one. A story must have a time marker or a place marker. Next, it must have a sequence of events. So basically, a sequence of events would actually help you to start visualizing it. So if you look at the Galileo 5 video I showed you, 11 months ago, 1,200 pounds, just landed 18 hours ago. So you can actually start visualizing it. So make sure that when you actually tell your story, you actually put a bit of a context to it. The third bit is a story must have character. So at best, one or two characters. And in business, it's always good to name the characters. Just don't say my boss. I think name the person, my boss, Muhammad, and try to have a bit of a conversation. So in my case, when I spoke, there were a lot of people I could spoke about, but I actually spoke about Nahid Siddiqui. And Nahid Siddiqui actually blessed me. He said, Allah shukar, GA kamane wale. And that was Nahid's actual words. So that's how you tell your story. And then again, there was another interesting question, which was, how do you sort of make your story interesting? And my thing is to you is that, if you tell a story, share something that is unexpected, something very simple. So for me, the unexpected moment was both the dovas sort of I received, or it could be that, a lot of people, some people died on that highway, but I got saved, or whatever. So there should be a bit of something unexpected into your story. And then again, there was another question which asked, do we always need to make a point when we tell a story? And absolutely, I think in business, you need to make a point. Otherwise, what's the point in sort of telling a story? Because stories actually help you to make your message stick, or for you to land a point. And how do you start? Obviously, when you're telling a story, you basically start with what is the point you are trying to make, and then you make sure that you use the framework to tell your story. So you may want to take a screenshot of this. It's very important. Yeah, a time marker, a place marker, a sequence of events, characters, dialogue, something unexpected, and a point. So if you have these elements, that actually makes a story. So are we good so far? And I think before we finish, I just want to introduce to you one more concept, and that's the concept called the clarity story pattern. Now, this particular, okay, let me show it to you. So what happens is that most of the time, when you ask people, like, can you tell me the strategy of your company or the values of the company, or could you tell me why such and such change is happening? Two things happen. Number one, most people may not be able to remember or may not be able to articulate it. There's a research that was done by Kaplan, and he said that almost 90% of the time people will not be able to remember the strategy because the strategy is up in the wall, or you need to refer to a document, but it's not imprinted in the heart. And many a times, even when you talk about values, if you got 7 or 8 values, people may probably get 2 or 3 right. And particularly now in the world that we are living in, there are a lot of changes that are happening. There's a lot of change in policies. There's a lot of change in a business strategy. And this is very useful for senior leaders to sort of communicate a change. And most of the time, we are actually in the habit of telling people what to do, but we seldom say why we need to do what we are doing. And the clarity story pattern comes into 4 parts in order for you to sort of communicate. So in the past, that means before pandemic, this was how we used to do things. Then COVID happened, pandemic happened. Therefore, so now we have to make these changes, and this is how the future is going to be. Now, I think the best way for me to sort of demonstrate to you is probably share with you a video of one of my own favorite storytellers, which is Steve Jobs. And most of you may not have seen this video because it's a video that was taken in 2011, 4 months before he passed away. But it was one of the most important presentations he did, because that was the time he actually introduced to you the iCloud strategy. And when you look at the way he introduced the strategy, he actually used the clarity story pattern. In the past, something happened, so now in the future. So I think in the little time that I have, Steve Jobs' video will actually demonstrate what I'm trying to say.
So I get to talk about iCloud. We've been working on this for some time now, and we're really excited about it. About 10 years ago, we had one of our most important insights, and that was that the PC was going to become the digital hub for your digital life. What did that mean? Well, it meant that that's where you were going to put your digital photos. Where else were you going to put them? Your digital video off your digital camcorder, and of course, your music, right? You were going to acquire it in the device or potentially on your Mac, and you were going to basically sync it to the Mac, and everything was going to work fine. And it did for the better part of 10 years, but it's broken down in the last few years. Why? Well, because the devices have changed. They now all have music. They now all have photos. They now all have video. And so if I acquire a song, I buy it right on my iPhone, I want to get that to my other devices, right? I pick up my iPad and it doesn't have that song on it. So I have to sync my iPhone to my Mac. Then I have to sync my other devices to the Mac to get that song. But then they've deposited some photos on the Mac, so I have to sync the iPhone again with the Mac to get those photos. And keeping these devices in sync is driving us crazy. So we've got a great solution for this problem. And we think this solution is our next big insight, which is we're going to demote the PC and the Mac to just be a device, just like an iPhone, an iPad, or iPod Touch. And we're going to move the digital hub, the center of your digital life, into the cloud. Because all these new devices have communications built into them. They can all talk to the cloud whenever they want. And so now, if I get something on my iPhone, it's sent up to the cloud immediately. Let's say I take some pictures with it. Those pictures are in the cloud, and they are now pushed down to my devices completely automatically. And now everything's in sync with me not even having to think about it. I don't even have to take the devices out of my pocket. I don't have to be near my Mac or PC. Now, some people think the cloud is just a hard disk in the sky, right? And you take a bunch of stuff and you put it in your Dropbox or your iDisk or whatever, and it transfers it up to the cloud and stores it, and then you drag whatever you want back out on your other devices. We think it's way more than that, and we call it iCloud. Now, iCloud stores your content in the cloud and wirelessly pushes it to all your devices. So it automatically uploads it, stores it, and automatically pushes it to all your other devices. But also, it's completely integrated with your apps. And so everything happens automatically, and there's nothing new to learn. It just all works.
So isn't that beautiful? You'll agree with me that it's a very complicated or a very dynamic or a very different strategy, because Apple actually believes in a lot of devices, and now they're telling that we're actually going to go to iCloud. So it's a major shift in the thing. But can you imagine a strategy being communicated with no numbers, just a bit of pictures, a bit of words, and a lot of stories? And of course, there's something which is spoke about was anti-stories. Anti-stories means, you look at the point of view differently. You look at a glass half empty rather than half full. And that's because of the previous experiences that you had, and how easily he actually anticipated some stories that you had in your mind, and he replaced it with a better story. So it's not easy. So Steve Jobs must have taken a lot of time to actually prepare on communicating that iCloud strategy. But you know what? I can actually explain it to my mom, because my mom actually has an iPad, and I can tell her, look, my brothers in the US and me and the whole family can be looking at the same thing at the same time. So that's a fantastic demonstration. It's extremely helpful for senior leaders, for CEOs, when they want to communicate the change. So what I've done is that I've actually demonstrated to you some concepts, and obviously storytelling as a concept is very easy to understand, but in terms of behavior, it's not easy. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of unlearning. Now, I just want to share with you a little bit in terms of what I do. So before that, I'm going to quickly sort of give you a few tips. And the first tip is, I would call it, before I give you a tip, I'm going to ask a question. Imagine if somebody's coming into a meeting and somebody says, look, I'm going to tell you a story in a very important business meeting. The immediate response would be, kahani mat batao. Don't tell me a story. Mera paas time nahi hai. This is business. So we don't have time for storytelling. Just get to the point. Now, that's because when somebody says, I'm going to tell you a story, in your mind, you think that it's a world of imagination, because storytelling as we know it, that as what we have learned in school, is about a world of imagination, a world of making up. In business, it is perceived as a way of making excuses or to sort of make up things for something that you have not done. So my first tip to you is don't avoid using the S word. So don't say that I'm going to tell you a story. Stories in business are invisible. So you share an experience, you share a moment, and it's actually a story, but don't say that I'm going to tell you a story. So you remember when I started, I didn't say that, look, let me tell you 2 stories about my visit to Pakistan. I said, let me share with you 2 experiences, but I told you 2 stories. So that's my first tip, okay? The second tip is favor your stories. Now, when I say favor your stories, I mean to say that the best stories are your own stories. There are 3 ways for you to sort of collect your story bank. One is your original story, or it could be the stories that you read, or it could be stories that you have picked up from people, the stories that you have heard. But the best stories are your own stories. The third one is that, storytelling is all about authenticity. So I think when you're authentic, the voice and the sound comes out naturally. So please don't try to dramatize it too much, because then the authenticity sort of gets lost. Always know your point. I think many times we get carried away. So if you know your point, you can easily sort of share your story in about 90 seconds, probably a business story in about 3 or 4 minutes. That you can only do if you know your point. And most of the time, we actually overdo it. We tell people everything that we know, rather than what we should tell them that they should know. So remember this: every time we speak, we don't need to tell everything we know. We got to tell people what they think they should know for you to make your point. And always keep them fresh. I think, like I said, it's important for you to have a few stories in your pocket. So every now and then you can use different stories. And there's no shortcut, my friends, particularly in business. You got to practice, practice, and practice. And that's the only way for you to get your stories right. And always keep them short. Like somebody said, mera paas time nahi hai. We don't have time in business for storytelling. And I think you're absolutely right. In business, we need to be very time efficient. And to be honest, stories actually help you to communicate much better in a time efficient world. And with practice and a little bit of learning, you actually get better at storytelling. So and please don't write it out in full. So this is about oral storytelling. So, some of you who are in corporate, I'm not talking about written storytelling. I think that's very different. Your grammar has to be correct and all that stuff. I'm talking about oral storytelling when we speak. And oral storytelling, if you try to remember and you try to memorize, you sort of don't get it right. But if you speak from your heart and you know the point you are making, you are sharing your own life experience, it will come out beautifully. Just remember what is the point you are trying to make. And remember to put those storytelling elements, details, time marker, place marker, etc., etc. So what I normally do, I actually do three things. Number one is I actually help leaders with storytelling, and I teach them storytelling skills. So I have a series of comprehensive program. It's actually a 6-month program to help leaders to become good storytellers. So there are some classes I conduct online, and then I do some practice and I do some follow-ups as well. The second one is something called story-powered sales. And this is typically done for the salespeople, how they can actually use sales in their storytelling. And these days I've been doing a lot of story coaching, helping leaders with their stories. So I help elicit stories from leaders and teach them how to tell it. So, this is the workbook that a participant gets. And remember, I told you there are so many story patterns. So I've demonstrated to you very quickly what a connection story pattern is. It actually helps you to build rapport very quickly. Clarity story actually helps you to sort of share meaning, share insights, to share your change, to help you share a strategy, culture change. Success stories is about how sort of you demonstrate business value. And influence stories, how do you sort of overcome entrenched views? Because in life, as in office, there are always people with different views. So how do you sort of influence each other? How do you overcome objections? And then for story-powered sales, I actually help people fill up their story bank, with their connection stories, staff stories, foundation story, insight story. So that's, again, sort of a very comprehensive stuff that we do with the sales leaders, I would say. And particularly useful for business-to-business selling, And I hope in time to come, some of you will become Sam Sebon, and a few people will become Steve Jobs. Not many people can be Steve Jobs, but with practice, we can actually become like Sam. And if you like to get in touch with me, those are my details. And the last time I traveled was in 2019 when I came for Air Asia, and I had a lot of fun. And Arif Lohar is one of my favorite singers. And I also remember Arif Lohar. So that was the last time I traveled. And after that visit to Pakistan in December 2019, March onwards, the whole world changed. And that's my email address. And feel free to also get in touch with TerraBiz, Hamza, and Faisal, because they know me quite well. And I've also put up their details. And I have some time to take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharatji. That was a fascinating, insightful talk. I was glued to it. And from the responses we had so far from people attending the program on Slido, they actually were quite engaged, have responded. Many people have responded actually to all the exercises that you had conducted. And pretty much, in line with what we were discussing yesterday. Um, so let's move on to the other part of the program. We have actually a lot of questions, but what we have done is that we have shortlisted those who are more, sort of everyday type of questions, which interest a broader audience and which are not repetitive. So the more technical ones, I'm sure, can be taken up in one of your later workshops or programs or some consulting assignments. Um, so I will like to begin by asking you this first question, and it is from me. Is it does one need to attend a formal training program to become a business storyteller? How would you
I think
respond
that's
to
a good question. In fact, one of the participants have also asked a question saying that, I can go to YouTube and there are so many other things that are available. So what, one need to go to a formal program? So my answer is, again, what I said, storytelling as a concept is easy. You can read a lot of books, you can see a lot of videos, but you have a choice. I think in order for you to become good at storytelling, I think it's good to learn how storytelling works, because the best way is by doing. So when you attend a program, it teaches you patterns, it teaches you formulas, and there's a lot of coaching involved. There's a lot of feedback involved. So it helps. But also, let me tell you, the formal part of storytelling is only 20%. 70% actually comes from practice, and 10% comes from coaching. So the choice is yours. But certainly, if you look at me, I'm also, before I teach storytelling, I've also been trained so that I can help others. So storytelling does help you, because, just because somebody tells stories does not mean that that person can teach storytelling. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, agreed. And someone also asked in the chat box that, and you when to stop, narrating the story, because how to gauge that people have started losing interest. So, is there a way to gauge it and then actually stopping it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes when I enter the classroom, or I enter when I'm doing something face to face, I see a lot of people in their devices. Nobody even looks at you. They're busy on the phone. And the minute we say, look, on my way to the office or on my way here at the reception, I use a time marker, place marker, everybody looks up because they know there's a story coming. So one way to sort of gauge whether people are interested or not is that are people listening to you? If they are bored, that means they are looking at their devices. But that's one signal. And that's probably you're not telling a story, you're talking. Most of the time, trust me, people are talking, not telling a story. And another way to find out whether your story is working or not, there is something called a lean forward. When you're telling a story, somebody actually leans towards you. And that basically knows that you are engaging with the person. So it becomes like this. But if you are talking and not telling a story, that guy becomes like this. So those are two signals you can easily pick up.
Okay.
Try that out sometimes, If you want to
Right.
get, at least don't tell people like stop your phone. try telling a story. You know what happened last night? Chances are immediately you'll get the attention.
Great. Acha, another question which personally has been, bothering me a lot with the, floodgate of data and visuals and information available, everywhere. So there's an age of information explosion, lots of data about everything. So people talk with lots of data, with lots of information, that lots of hard facts. So in this world, when everything depends on ROI, everything needs to be measured, in advance. So how to narrate an example? I mean, if you could narrate an example, okay, when the story can be used effectively to communicate data, so
Correct.
that
So
it
that's a
is,
very good question, Hamza.
yeah,
Very good question. And you're absolutely right. In the pandemic, as such, we have been drowning with data, right? Looking
that's
the
true.
gigabyte. And now with pandemic is worse because we're all glued to social media. So Hamza, imagine there's a Boeing, there's an airplane which is about to crash. And in that airplane, there are 250 children below the age of 5. And I'm sure you want to save that airplane from crashing, right?
Sure.
Okay, now I want you to imagine there are 60 such airplanes that crash every day. 60 Boeings of 250 children that crash every day. That's the number of children that die every day. 6.6 million children who don't make it to the age of 5.
Correct.
Now, will you remember the number or no? 6.6 million. So metaphor is one way of sort of sharing a story so that it helps people remember. Okay, now, again, most of the time when we are sharing data, so there are always peaks and these things, and there's always a story that's there. So especially in financial institutions and all that. So you share a data, but when you explain those points which are not normal, sort of a story helps you do it. So I actually run a program called Storytelling with Data, but that's on another day. But I think it's particularly important for people who need to communicate a lot of information, a lot of numbers, and a lot of CFOs are now using storytelling to communicate numbers.
Acha,
Very
interesting.
important. Good question, Hamza.
Another question that has been asked by a lady actually. Does humor dilute a story? I mean, what's the role of humor in storytelling, and how to effectively use it?
Yeah, so in my case, I normally don't use humor because I'm hopeless. I'm a very serious person, and sometimes my humor actually goes flat. So I normally don't take a risk. But there are some people who are very natural. So doing humor is a bit of a risk because it turns out to be a bit of a joke. But some people naturally convey it. But I think it's a bit of a gift. So practice it. If it works, it's fine. But sometimes it goes flat. But I personally, I cannot do it. So it's not my style of doing it. So I don't do it. So and sometimes the humor is so strong that your point gets mistaken. People remember the joke, but they don't. They remember the humor, but they forget the point you're trying
There's
to
a
make.
risk of it. Yeah, losing out the meaning of the message, and the joke is remembered.
But having said that, humor actually helps. So sometimes if you practice it well, and if you know it sits like Kofi Annan uses a bit of humor. But I noticed that the same thing he has done it many times. You want me to share the Kofi Annan story?
Please go ahead. Yeah, why not?
So, every time Mr. Kofi Annan speaks, some of the speakers will start by, look, Mr. Kofi Annan needs no introduction because everybody knows who Kofi Annan is, right? So I think at AirAsia and Bali, similar thing happened. The host says, Mr. Annan needs no introduction. Okay. Then Mr. Annan said, no, that's not true. Sometimes I need to be introduced. Then he said, look, when I retired from the United Nations, I was feeling very, very tired and I really needed a rest. So we said, look, let's go somewhere where nobody knows us. So one of their friends actually loaned them a villa in Lake Como in Italy. So they actually had this secluded villa. He and his wife Nan actually went there. And after a few days, they got bored all by themselves. They were not used to that thing. So they said, look, why don't I go to the village grocery to sort of pick up a newspaper? And I'm sure nobody would recognize us. So when he went to the village grocer to pick up his newspaper, suddenly he realized everybody was staring at him. And then he was telling, oh God, look, I think my cover is sort of blown up. Then immediately somebody walks up to him and he says, Morgan Freeman, can you sign my autograph? So somebody actually mistook him for Morgan Freeman, and he actually signs Freeman. And then he tells his wife, Nan, actually, I lied. And he says, no, you didn't lie because you are actually a Freeman. So that the humor worked beautifully. But there was another person who tried humor when Mr. Mr. Tata, JRD Tata was introduced, and he said, Mr. Tata, the less said, the better. You know what it means when you tell somebody the less, iska baare mein acha kam bolu to acha rahega. So it is misfire. So you have to be very careful with humor.
Yeah. True. Acha, moving on to our next question. I mean, Bharat, there are situations in the real world, in the business world, where, I mean, you have to come up with a storytelling situation when it's impromptu, when it suddenly you have to make some story out of here. So how do you prepare for that impromptu moment, or it just comes naturally to you?
I think even to me, my stories don't come naturally. I have a story bank. On my phone, I have all my stories. And I always practice my stories, particularly in business. One should not do impromptu. It may come out as impromptu, but you should have enough stories in your pocket. Like my Kofi Annan story, it may seem impromptu, but trust me, it's in my pocket. That's why I can share it. But sometimes, your facts, your details, your data may not be correct. But, the other question, I don't like the word make up stories, because in business, you can't make up stories. We live in a real world. It's a world of integrity. It's a world of credibility. And in business, it's all about real story. And there was an interesting incident sort of that came to my mind. And that was in the year 1995. And this was the story about, what was it called? eBay. You remember eBay? 1996. So a story was actually floated around the time in 1996 about what was the insight that led to the foundation of eBay. And the story was such that, what was his name? Pierre Omidyar actually set up eBay because he wanted to help his fiancée who had a collection of those candy canisters, Pace candy canisters. I don't know, Americans use it. I don't know what those candy canisters are. But she found it difficult to sort of trade. So he said, look, why don't we do it e-commerce? So, and 2 years later, they discovered that it was a fake story.
Oh.
And so don't take the risk, my friend. And even when I teach my people, I tell them, I teach you all these skills, but please don't misuse it, because you may get away with it once or twice. But I think it's not ethical. So in case you're making up a story to make a point, you just say that I like you to imagine. So that 250, that plane thing which I told you, I made up a story. I said, imagine a plane is going to crash. But that is to make a point. But don't plant a story. I mean, please don't do that in business. Absolute no.
That brings to my attention. I believe you fairly know well, Mr. Javed Jabbar. Do you know? Have you heard it?
Yeah, very well. What was it called? That movie.
So Javed Jabbar Sahab is a legendary, iconic advertising figure and a communication expert. So उनका मैं ये देख रहा था एक दफा टीवी पे ही वाज आस्क्ड दिस क्वेश्चन कि जावेद साहब एनी टाइम we request you to say something about philosophy or religion or politics or international relations and whatever, and media or advertising, so you always come up very well prepared, and you give a dissertation at a very in a very impromptu manner. So how can you muster all that knowledge and information, and how can you come up with an excellent talk every time you are asked without any preparation? तो उनका जवाब ये था कि ये इम्प्रॉम्प्टू स्पीच देने के लिए 30 इयर्स की प्रिपरेशन करता हूँ मैं. तो कोई यानी इस तरह से इम्प्रॉम्प्टू वो लगती है, लेकिन ये कि द गाय हैज बीन द प्रोलिफिक राइटर, वोरेशियस रीडर, ऑब्जर्वर, So that's how he basically, I think वो भी collect करते हैं, and all whatever he says is backed up by fact and is all authentic and genuine. So he's one of our icons. And अच्छा, ये एड एशिया आपको पता होगा 1989 जो पाकिस्तान की पहली एड एशिया हुई थी, तो ही वाज द चेयरमैन ऑफ एड एशिया। तो सरमद भाई और ये सारे उनके साथ थे, इमरान भाई वगैरह। अच्छा, ये आपके काफी दोस्त हैं जो सब भी ज्वाइन किए हुए। This question is by a friend.
So before you ask that question, let me respond to what Jabbar Saab said. I know Jabbar Saab quite well, and I have huge respect for him. And what he said is absolutely true. So I want to give some advice to particularly young people who are starting off their career. You know, I've already spent 30 years, and I wish somebody had told me storytelling when I was working. Because, you know, when you leave your job, all the numbers, your achievements, all that are forgotten, but the stories remain. You actually carry the stories with you. So I'll actually like you to start collecting your stories. So when you have experiences, when you have your challenges, and trust me, it will really help you in life. And you know, most people, after they retire, they write a book. So I'm not talking about it, but I'm saying that get into the habit of collecting stories and practicing stories. And trust me, you'll even succeed in your work. And storytelling actually helps you work in impromptu. So I'll give you an example. I did a storytelling session in Kuala Lumpur, and the head of the head of HR met the regional president who was visiting Kuala Lumpur in the lift. So let's call her Mary. You know, Mary is the head of HR, and the visiting president was John. And John asked Mary, he said, how's the economy? How's business? And normally HR people will not have the numbers, right? They'll have people numbers. They may not have business numbers like how the commercial officer will have. Then she suddenly remembered, look, I attended Bharat's workshop. And so he said, look, John, I actually don't have the number, but let me tell you what happened on Saturday. You know, on Saturday, I went shopping to Jaya supermarket. It's my regular shopping. On a normal day, the Saturday is very packed. A lot of people, it's busy. But I found out that there were very few people. It was very empty. And then while it was empty, I actually walked around to look at the shelf and check the prices of shampoo. You know, that's what people do. We check prices. And suddenly we realized that our competitor was pricing the shampoo lower than us. Normally the competitor will sell it at a premium. So I think people don't have much money to spend in the market, and there is a bit of price discounting that's happening. I think that's my observation. You know, John says, I think you are right. So John actually wrote that in the report. So if you have a story, it also helps you to respond to it.
Yes, and
so it's very powerful. Right? But see, that's my wife coming in. So I said, I'm at home. So Amajana is for everybody.
Right. Do say my salam to her later on.
Sure. Thank you.
Acha, Bharatji, this is a question by a friend, Farooq Haider Sheikh. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Babelfish Consultants. And now he is busy these days, I know, in revamping Pakistan Railways, because Pakistan Railways has seen good days. The question that he's asking is how does storytelling fits into large public sector organizations?
That's a very good question. See, unfortunately, the government and the public sector got very little credibility. I'm talking about general. And in fact, I read somewhere that, people will trust a businessman more than they would trust a politician. I'm not saying that all politicians cannot be trusted, but that's the general perception. So every time they do something, even with the best of intention, you know, it's like that geometrical shapes stuff that I told you.
Yeah.
That people are yaar iska kuch bribery hoga ya foreign government ka hoga. People will always, and I actually feel sorry for public sector, because the niyat may be correct, but people don't sometimes give them enough chance. So therefore, it's extremely important for them to, actually I work with a lot of GLCs in Malaysia, to be honest, to help sort of communicate. So I'll give you an example, okay? So I'd like you to go to the world of telcos. Telcos are the telecommunication companies. So like Telenor or Zong or whatever. So imagine in those days, when you set up the telco company, a lot of companies actually invested a lot of money on infrastructure. And the company that had the best infrastructure had the best chance to succeed. And because they invested so much on infrastructure, they had very little money on innovation and value-added service. So the government sort of made a policy that all the telco service providers have to start sharing their infrastructure to release some capital. So obviously it was a very unpopular decision, a lot of people. So imagine if you use storytelling. So this is how I would use it, as a policy decision. In the past, the only way to succeed in the telco business was by investing in infrastructure. The company that had the best infrastructure, the best reach, succeeded. Then something happened. When they carried out an audit, they realized that Malaysians were paying a very high price for very inferior service. And that was because the company was spending so much money on infrastructure that they did not have enough money to do other things. So therefore, now the government has made a decision that the telco should start sharing their infrastructure and start investing more in innovation and value-added services. And in future, the company that gives consumers the best value at the best possible price is the company that's going to succeed. Now that's storytelling. But if you look at policy, in the parliament we have discussed article so and so, effective 15th October, all telcos have to share their infrastructure. Then what will the people say? अरे यार उसके साथ तो हम compete कर रहे थे, and now आप बोल रहे हो तो साथ काम करो. So for policy holders is extremely important. So Farooq Saab, thank you so much for that question. And I wish more policy holders and more leaders actually use storytelling to communicate why they are doing what they are doing.
अच्छा भरत जी, एक बिल्कुल डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है कि हाउ कैन वी यूज स्टोरी टेलिंग इन बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट. ये सना महमूद पूछ रही है, हाउ कैन वी यूज स्टोरी टेलिंग इन बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट. कट टू द चेस, मतलब बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट से सेल्स से कैसे इसको लिंक करें.
Exactly, that's what absolutely, that's why I run the storytelling program. So again, I'll tell you how storytelling actually helps. Let me share with you a story. So, my wife is from India, and sometimes we actually go to India, and sometimes we go shopping. And my wife is quite smart. He said, "No, supermarket nahi jana hai. I have some nice departmental store where I'll get a good discount." So this is what typically happens. They would say that, "Bhabhi ji, aapka budget kitna hai?" So he said, "Look," then Bhabhi ji will look at me, and I'll say, "Budget 1,000 rupees hai." ठीक है, मैं आपको 1,000 rupees का दिखाता हूँ samples. Then suddenly from somewhere a sari drops, and my wife says, "Can I have a look at that sari?" He said, "नहीं, ये आपके budget के बाहर है." And imagine in front of everybody, the shopkeeper is telling my wife कि ये आपके budget में नहीं है. And imagine my ego getting hurt. And you know what I say? नहीं, वही दिखाओ. He said, "नहीं sir, ये आपके budget में नहीं है. नहीं, मुझे वही साड़ी दिखाओ. भाभी जी ने बोला ना, उसको दिखाओ." And we end up buying that sari. So I'm saying that don't underestimate the power of emotions in sales. All said and done, after due diligence, there is power in terms of emotions that helps you to do business development. And I'm not saying by making up stories, because there is a bit of emotion play that happens when you do buying and selling. And if you attend my program, I'll actually demonstrate to you how you can actually use storytelling in sales. So I'll give you another example. In a pharmaceutical industry, a lot of these industries use a lot of, I don't want to mention the name of the company, but imagine this particular company is doing diabetic products. And millions and millions and millions are actually spent on research. And then they go for the government tenders. And when you do the government tenders, there are a lot of people who actually, they sell generic products. They give you about half the price of this multinational. And then they lose the tender. So then in my workshop, I actually told them, he said, why don't you go and explain to them that your prices is high because your purpose is to actually help reduce the diabetic incidence and to help diabetic people have normal life. So lots and lots of money go into research. And that's why your product needs to be priced the way it is, because there's a lot of things that goes into it. And probably some consideration will be given that, we also need to, business cannot be running a loss. So,
True.
So the answer is, then why storytelling for business is not only to make you successful as a leader in terms of communicating, but it also help you to grow your business. particularly even for entrepreneurs. I'm sorry, this is a topic that's close to my heart. Even entrepreneurs, sometimes they forget that, they give a lot of importance on their products, they give a lot of importance on their services, on their brands. And I actually tell the entrepreneurs, apni kahani bhi batao. Tell somebody about yourself. And because of that, that person may probably get a loan from a bank, because the loan officer will say, isme passion hai, isme guts hai, isme belief hai. And people actually give you the loan based on your ability. Isn't that business development? So the answer is a big tick mark. Yes, storytelling helps you in business development.
अच्छा, now I'm thanks for that. दो questions हैं, एक अलीना तफसीर है शौकत खानम हॉस्पिटल, you know that you've done some programs for them. इसी तरीके
Fantastic
से
work you are doing. Congratulations.
yeah, they are absolutely. और एक जैनब ईसा जी ने ओक्टारा कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में, उसमें एक ही तरह का सवाल है, जैसे नाउ डेज जूम मीटिंग्स हो रहे हैं, तो वर्चुअल प्रोग्राम्स हैं या वर्चुअल मीटिंग्स हैं, तो उसमें दे बोथ वुड वांट टू आस्क कि इसमें इंटरेक्शन वैसे ही इतना मुश्किल होता है, और उस वक्त में किस तरह से हम इन मीटिंग्स और इनमें हम प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च कर रहे हों या प्रेजेंटेशंस बोर्ड को दे रहे हों, तो हाउ कैन, जब जीरो ह्यूमन इंटरेक्शन हो, तो हाउ कैन वी enhance the quality of our talk or engagement through storytelling? In what ways can it help?
I think it's a very important question. I think not only in a Zoom world, even in a normal world, people's attention span is very little. But in a Zoom world, it's all the more. So, I mean, look at the session today, right? Did you feel that we are not engaged? We are engaged, right? At least I feel that even though I'm all alone, I can only see you, Hamza Sahab. I cannot see anybody else. So what I'm saying that when you have your meetings and all that, be a bit human. Just don't get started. Arey chala minute sharu karte, aaj ka agenda kya hai? Spend some time talking to that person. How are you feeling today? Don't ask how are you. That question, I think, got no meaning. And trust me, people will respond. If I say, how are you feeling? I would say that, I'll tell you how am I feeling now. I'm feeling great. I've spoken to 600 people without saying to any other single people. But I feel that I'm in Pakistan. मुझे ऐसा महसूस हो रहा है. So, and some people have had a good day, some people have a bad day. So recognize that, because people actually bring emotions to the meeting. And once you recognize it, your meetings should be much, much more beautiful. And always remember that we are people serving people. And Hamza Sab, I think on that point, I would say that, if you ask me, Bharatji, why are you doing storytelling? And I would say that, unfortunately, our workplaces have become very transactional. Our leaders have also become very transactional. They're all very successful leaders in terms of their deliveries, but they are not very good with people. And that's why loyalty level is very little, people from one job to another job. And if we start doing storytelling at work, storytelling actually humanizes the workplace, and humanity sort of gets restored to the workplace. And that's my purpose. My purpose is to help leaders to restore humanity to the workplace, and that's what storytelling does. Thank you, Hamza, for this wonderful opportunity. And to all the listeners, I wish I did not speak to you. We could have just done Q&A because I think I enjoyed the Q&A very much. And the quality of your questions actually shows that you people want to learn and you really want to know a lot about storytelling. And for somebody like me, I think it inspires me to do more, because it will help you. So thank you again. I wish you all the very best. Happy storytelling, story on. And Google around and follow me on social media. I post a lot of stories, I post a lot of tips, and there's a lot of stuff out there, but by reading it will not happen. Practice. Okay. Thank you.
Reading and then practice will make you even better. Yeah. And so Bharat, thanks a lot. There were quite a few questions, although I had shortlisted them, but I think we have almost reached the conclusion of the program. Inshallah, in some other opportunity, we'll take them up. And I look forward to introducing you to other companies and individuals who will be interested in your expertise in storytelling. So already you are a known figure in Pakistan. Many companies have worked with you. You are such. I mean, you. I can say you enjoy a celebrity,
No,
status
no, no.
in Pakistan. No, no, you loved, and people love you for that. Uh, Bharat, I will just take a minute to before I thank you. Formally, take a minute to acknowledge the names and
Sure.
contributions of a few organizations that have helped us in bringing out all this for the outreach of this talk. IOBM is our knowledge partner. You know Talib Saab very well.
Yeah, yeah.
Talib
Talib Saab. Thank you.
yeah. So, and we have always been, supported by CFA Association as our knowledge partners. Quite a few of their members also are attending, and your very own Marketing Association of Pakistan is a partner in this program. The Marketing Association of Pakistan Lahore chapter, Amir Salam, is recently become the president. So he had sent you greetings. Imran Ahmed Saab, president. Asfar Hassan,
Of course,
Asfar Hassan
all
is
my good friends.
Asfar Hassan
Convey my
is
salams to
become
them.
the vice president, and they all, are in one way or the other connected here. मसूद हाशमी भाई वगैरह, इमरान भाई. अच्छा, फिर इसमें वी हैव वेरी important support from ACCA Pakistan. Lots of their people from finance background are participating, both from CFA background, from ICAP, and from ACCA. Then your very own International Advertising Association Pakistan chapter. So your friend Sarmad
Ahmad
Bhai,
Ali.
yeah, and uh, an important association that has partnered with us, started partnering with us recently is Chain Store Association of Pakistan. Now, Chain Store Association of Pakistan is a conglomerate of 200, more than 200 uh, formal retail organizations or retailers in Pakistan. So many of their members are participating. A very good addition that has been made for, especially we have begun our relationship with them today with your program, is the Communication Association of Pakistan. So Communication Association of Pakistan is one area which is coming up. Farhan Ahmed, you probably know him. He's the president,
From
and
the
he's,
Habib Bank, right?
yeah, from Abi Bank. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Farhan is chairing that, but there's a newly formed, very vibrant group of senior communication professionals in the corporate sector. Um, then we have uh, many other business recorder newspaper, the Prophet newspaper, Sales Association of Pakistan, and a few others as well. So all the logos have been promoted, which can be seen. Symmetry Group is a very well known company, which they are digital partners. So I have thanked almost all. If I have missed out, I apologize for that. But Bharat, once again, I first of all again would like to say my profound thanks to all those who have joined us live from various parts of Pakistan and abroad, and then obviously you. Folks, you will be receiving a feedback form on your email box, and which we would very much like you to fill out and send it back to us. It will help us understand what have you gained and what would you like us to do next time for such a program, what other topics and speakers you are interested in, and how can we improve our offerings. Second thing is that the questions that have not been answered today, I assure you that some other time we will take them up. But all have been shared with our respected faculty. Um, Lastly, keep following us on our social media, and so that you can get updates. We will be sending out an email to all those who have not been able to attend today's talk despite registration, and we will send them a link for recording. And those who have not registered but they would still like to benefit from this talk may at any time register by filling out the form available on our website, and of course they will also be sent the link of the recording. We will also be sharing you a brief executive summary of the talk in a week's time, which you can enjoy reading at your leisure. So with this, we come to an end, and I take this opportunity to thank all of you, and especially to my very dear friend, my elder, Mr. Bharat Avalani. Always a pleasure talking to you, benefiting from you, listening to you, in your being in your company, and you have lots of friends here. And I think today you have made many more. So thank you, Bharat, and my warm regards to all your colleagues, and also my I don't think the correct occasion, but we spoke about the demise of your very dear friend, Mr.
Pradeep Guha.
Pradeep
Pradeep
Guha.
Guha.
He was also very well known and recognized and respected in the advertising fraternity of Pakistan. Our friend Asfar Hassan has been a very good friend of him, Sarmad Bhai, and many others. And you wrote an obituary which you had sent it to me, which we will be placing. And friends, when you read that obituary, you will see that how Bharat has incorporated the lessons that he had just been talking about, how what stories which were pertinent to related to Mr. Pradeep Guha. So, in while paying the tribute, he has incorporated those stories, which has which introduced the man to a person to those people who would barely know him or who would not know him at all, but they would remember him after reading that small piece of obituary, because they're very emotional but authentic personal anecdotes, incidents, and memories, which will tell you more, will attach you with the person that you have not met in your life. That how good was he, how caring was he, and how to remember and recall the person who have contributed and benefited us in so many ways. And we should, I think, uh, and those are blessed people who are not only recognized when they are around us, but also when they leave us, and they leave this world. So with this note, Bharat, if you have something to say, please go ahead, and then
Yeah, just
from me.
yeah. Thank you, Hamza, for those very kind words. I want to say three things. Number one, I pray that it's not long before we can meet each other face to face.
Inshallah.
I think all of us should pray, because I think human beings are meant to socialize. We are meant to be with each other, shake hands, do some gup chup,
Absolutely.
and remember the shortest distance between two people is a story. A story will connect you instantly. Uh, so remember that, the distance between two people is a story. Now, I was very touched by what you spoke about Pradeep. But you know what hurts me more? Every time people die, there are a lot of obituaries written. There are a lot of eulogies written. A lot of good things are said about people. Then when you read it and you realize, "Arey yaar, I didn't realize this person is so good." And that person who is no more will not even see all those good things that we are saying. So my only request to you is, I think one thing that pandemic has taught us is the value of humanity. Because if you cannot sustain relationships in this world, nothing else can be sustained. So, if there's some good things that you want to say to people, you want to acknowledge people, if you want to show your appreciation, do it while they are alive. It's like saying that, when I'm no more, don't put any flowers on my cover, because I'll not be able to smell it. So what's the point? When somebody is there, of course you say it, but that person is not going to read it, right? So my only advice is, if there are any flowers to give it to me now, so that I can smell it. And please do it to all your loved ones. So that's one thing that sort of teaches us. And in pandemic, we have lost so many people. So stories sometimes give you a bit of life as well. So please do that. And all I want to say, I wish you all well. Stay safe, stay positive, and Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz. With that note, folks, thanks a lot. Thank you, Bharatji.